This is our second webinar. The topic today is data, CRM, and customer centricity. We decided to do this webinar because of the first one. The overall the survey showed that this topic was the most favorite one to do in the second webinar, so we decided to do that. And I would like to jump right into today's webinar. For the webinar, we always have one expert, one guest that introduces the topic. For today's webinar, I have a special guest. My today's guest, she basically introduced Ricardo, which is the biggest auction platform in Switzerland, to data, CRM, and customer centricity. Then she went to Estée Lauder. She did the same there. After that, she traveled the world and decided to become a consultant, started a business in consulting for customer centricity, CRM, and data. And we are very happy to have her as a teacher for our online courses in data, CRM, and customer centricity. Please welcome everybody, the wonderful Jevgenija Glazunova.
Hello, everybody. Darko, thank you so much for summarizing everything. I know there are a lot of background details that I have, and you can probably see it on the next slide. And I'm really happy to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me. Of course, I'm very passionate about CRM, and I'm happy to share it with people and whatever I know and my background. This is how we can actually jump to the next slide, and I can start with exactly. So years ago, when I moved from the marketing background into the working with data and technology and eventually CRM, I realized that if you ask 10 different people about what CRM is, you will get very different answers. And most likely, those answers will be related to technology. It's just the platform. It's the platform that we have or we don't have. We're happy with it or we're not happy with it. Mostly, the answers would be not happy with it. But you would less likely or less frequently hear that CRM is actually an approach. And this is how I stepped back and I said, I want to take a look at the definition. And the definition of the CRM is that it's really an approach of the company, how it manages the interactions with the customers, how it tries to analyze the data that it has around the customers, and then based on this data or using this data in a very relative personalized way to build relationships. So two keywords we take out of the definition. One, it's that CRM is an approach. It's not just platform. It's not just technology. And that we're building relationships. We're not just trying, hook somebody on just because we're learning something about these people, but actually trying to be helpful, to meet their needs, to find what kind of insights are there. And obviously, this is the approach, and this is the basis, the foundation for the long-term retention and customer satisfaction, which in turn, of course, as a consequence, as a very nice consequence, has the sales growth and ROI. And so if we go further on the next slide, then you see how we think about the customer centricity. Customer centricity is basically shifting the mindset. It's shifting the mindset from thinking about my product, my service, and how do I share about this? How do I push this message about my product and service into thinking the other way around? What does my customer need? What does my customer need in every specific step of their way? And the data is actually the enabler for this. So we gather different information through the touch points in interactions between the customer and the company, be it everything that customer shares with us, be it surveys or NPS, be it maybe even the customer support cases. So there can be the positive sharing of information and the negative sharing of information. And also, what do we do with this information internally in the company. So for example, we track and analyze customer life cycle, or we do some predictive modeling, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, this is really the shift in thinking, first of all, within the organization. What do they need rather than what do I want to push on them in terms of what kind of information I have. And interestingly, whoever worked with me or still working as a consulting, for example, or teaching, you will hear me speak about my CRM mantra, which we will take a look at the next slide. And the CRM mantra, for me, it's very simple approach, because if we think about CRM, then oftentimes we don't know where to start. Do we start with data? Do we start with technology? Do we start with customers? Where do we begin? And so over the years, I have developed a very neat and very clear approach to explain what CRM means for me. And CRM is based on 3 pillars. One pillar is data, obviously. Data, what kind of data do we collect about our customers? What kind of data do we collect on a regular basis and on ad hoc basis? What kind of data we process and how are we able to process it? For example, do we have a data team inside or data analyst, or we don't? Do we have any specific tools to analyze the data, be it the self-serve option or maybe with the help of somebody? And also on top of that, what kind of data we don't have? Probably something that would be key to learn, key to understand about the behavior of our customers or consumers, but we just don't have it. And so what kind of strategies do we put in place in order to collect this information? Maybe it's surveys, maybe it's NPS, maybe it's some kind of really quick surveys on the web page, or any kind of engagement to learn more about customers. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is technology. Of course, we are coming here, and technology enables us to do more and to also maybe dream more about the ideal solution where we will be. Technology means, again, not only one system that does everything for us. There is no such system. We just need to kind of accept it, that there is no one system that everyone is happy with. There will always be a combination of different systems. And this is why when we as CRM experts or professionals, or maybe marketing professionals, or maybe data professionals, go into so-called technology audit, we take a look at the whole infrastructure. So that's a broader view. We take a look at what kind of systems are in place. And here, I mean, really the systems where the customer or consumer data is stored. We're not talking about systems in accounting or servers, or this is out of scope. We take a look specifically on the systems where customer data is. And what we're looking at the fragmentation. So how the systems are connected or not connected. And we really need to become experts in understanding how this data is flowing, what are the bottlenecks, and what is even the frequency of data flow. So for example, if we talk about the data which is collected through the website behavior, the browsing and clicks and downloads and so on, how frequently it flows into your data warehouse, and then how frequently are you allowed to upload it, for example, into your email provider where you want to retarget those people. If this time span is 1 week, then it's already, sounds like there might be some issues. So when you take a look deeper into the infrastructure audit, then you are able to connect the dots and also define some strategies around quick wins, how to change some things without changing the whole platform. Okay, and then the third pillar is communication. With communication, I mean literally interactions between the company and the customers. It can be marketing, it can be sales, it can be customer support. It is the interaction where the company uses the data and the customer is kind of served or helped or supported or provided a service or a product. And these 3 pillars, they should work in literally as an orchestra. They should be seamlessly integrated into each other. And therefore, CRM, again, it's not only the technology, it's what kind of processes have we built around data, technology, communication, so that they would be integrated into each other. Because as you know, if in orchestra somebody is not playing and sing, then you don't want to hear that melody. When we talk about these three pillars, what is important to keep in mind as well is that it's also connected to the teams. So if you think about the data team and the technology team, and then the marketing team, or anyone who is providing communication, they also should work together in a really smooth, collaborative way, because if they have an alignment, they can support each other better, and they also have a transparency of what's required. So for example, marketing can rely on data people, because data people understand what kind of goals or target marketing people have in order to, let's say, drive marketing, to introduce marketing, data-driven communication, and so on. So it's really, this orchestra principle is not only about the pillars, but also about the team collaboration as well. And when we have done this kind of the comprehensive infrastructure audit and the data audit and communication audit, this serves as a really, really good basis for formulation of the CRM strategy. Because then as an expert, you see what you have, you see where your biggest bottlenecks are and the realistic possibilities to improve them. This is a really good basis for understanding and also showing in the company that, look, if we overcome this and this, we will be able to improve our company ROI, our campaigns ROI, our retention, our CLV, and so on and so forth. And of course, what helps as well, it helps if the person who is working in a CRM has different skills. As you can see from these three pillars, it's really a challenging role, because this person needs to know a lot. He or she needs to come from the background of either data or technology or communication, preferably having one domain with a really, really deep knowledge. So for example, my background is marketing, so I came from communication and then expanded myself into the data and technology domains. And on top of that, you would need to understand the business model. What is the business model that your business is operating, and how to make it better, how to improve, how to make sure that we increase the target, that we reach our targets, and they are monitored. So about the skills, it's really lifelong learning, I would say, because it's kind of challenging, but it's also very rewarding, understanding the bigger picture and helping to connect different dots. What also helps is knowing a lot of different frameworks that can be applied when this audit is done and when the CRM strategy is defined. Then various frameworks are helping to work with data, for example, in order to then to translate it into meeting customer needs. And on the next slide, you can see first, the most, I would say, basic is the customer lifecycle. This one is a must for everybody, and I would always recommend, if you don't have it yet, which I hope you do, that you start thinking about it. Why? Because again, when a company gathers data about customers, then of course the amount of data can be huge, right? Technology can collect a lot of data. But then as humans, we approach it, and sometimes we're stuck in this so-called analysis paralysis, because we don't understand, okay, where do we begin now? Do we begin from that side or this side? Am I too broad, or am I too detailed? Does it help? And so on. So my recommendation and strategy is always to start broad and organizing this broad amount of information into digestible chunks or digestible buckets. And the life cycle stages does just that. It basically starts organizing those buckets. So let's say we are thinking about, here was the example of the loyalty program, and we have split those people that we have, the customer base, we have split them into the new members, then we have the active earning and spending, we have inactive, and then we monitor who were we able to win back, to reactivate, and who did we lose completely. And when you monitor those numbers, then you have a really good feeling about, okay, how many new members do I have on a monthly basis? Am I reaching my target? Is it too slow? Is it too fast? Is it okay? Or should I do something else in order to recruit more? And on top of that, you also have a very intuitive understanding of what would these people need at this specific stage. So for example, if these people are new to the loyalty program, of course, every one of you would think right away, aha, they need some education, right? They need some onboarding, they need some information about how it works, what kind of benefits and perks they are, what are the possibilities to understand where is my e-statement, or when my points are expiring, and so on and so forth. And then the next one is, for example, active earning spending. So if you have active customers, of course, our goal would be to keep them there, right? We don't want them to sleep somewhere into inactivity. So what we want to do is to delight, to surprise them, to make sure they are happy, to meet their expectations about the maybe special offers or very personalized offers of the products or services they are using, and keeping the hand on pulse. For me, it's always going back to asking questions. So here it would be organizing some kind of surveys or NPS, the Net Promoter Score feedback, so that we would constantly monitor whether these active people are happy or not. So that would be one of the frameworks. Another framework is so-called pirate funnel. It's a funny name because it took the first letters from the awareness, acquisition, activation, and retention, revenue, and referral. And then, so that we wouldn't be saying our framework, we would just say pirate framework. And as you can see, it's organized a little bit like a funnel. So going from the wider spot into the narrower, and narrower. And this framework is a good one to understand where is also the one of the main bottlenecks. So let's take, for example, you have a campaign. And in this campaign, let's say it's a digital campaign, so you're able to measure how many people you actually reach. So that would be your biggest, broadest number. And then the next step, you take already how many people visited the website. So that would be less people, and you can estimate the conversion between how many you reached and how many people are visited. The next one would be activation. So let's say it is the people who took the first important step, or maybe bought something. Depends on your business, depends on your on the goals of this campaign. And again, you are measuring the conversion rate between these steps. The steps may be interchanging. So again, depending on your business, maybe you are based more on retention, or you are based more on the revenue. It can change. The main idea is that since you have those numbers, you are able to really understand where the bottleneck is. So your conversion rates are sort of showing where you need improvements, where you need experimentation, where you need maybe asking for feedback, what goes wrong. Is this digital experience that goes wrong? Is it offer that is not meeting expectations? Is it too pricey? What is it, right? So you find the pain points and you go into that, okay? The next framework is a segmentation, and segmentation is another possibility to start organizing the big raw data into the digestible chunks. or buckets. And I don't know if you've heard ever about the RFMS segmentation. I hope you did, because it's a very nice thing which I worked with in 3 different companies, in some of them actually launching it from scratch. And why is this great? Is that because you have really different filters which you apply on your database, which would be, so RFMS logically, it stands for recency. So how fresh your customer was on your platform, or when was it the last time when your customer bought your service or product. Frequency, obviously, how often this person is coming back. Monetary spend is how much this person is giving out per purchase or per month, for example. And then seniority is how long a person is registered in your database. Okay, and so when we have done this, on the next slide, I will show you what is the outcome. The outcome is that when you apply those filters, it is possible to organize your customer into different segments. So here, for example, it was 8 different segments. I know it sounds like a lot, but then I will explain you how to simplify it a little bit. So the idea is that once you have applied those 4 filters, the recency, frequency, monetization, and seniority, you see something like a pyramid. And on the top of the pyramid, let's say the first segment, we call it best, just for ease. This would be your cream of the cream. These are people who are coming most frequently, very often. These people who are spending a lot of money with your company. These are the people who registered years ago, so they are loyal. They are already, they know the company and product inside out, and they have also been recently on the platform or in your shop or wherever your stage is. So, of course, what you want to do, you want to learn everything about these people. You want to know who they are, what are they doing, how to make them happy, how to make sure that they don't drop off, because one of those people going away is probably worth, I don't know how many people in other segments, right? And so you can see in other segments, as for example, in 2, 3, 4, and so on, these would already be your customers with either less frequency or less monetary spend, or different levels of frequency, monetary spend, and less seniority, less recency. So we've organized them into 8 different segments, and we have done a major work together with the really great BI colleagues. We started digging into each and single segment. Yes, it sounds like a lot of work, I know, but it paid out perfectly for all the upcoming campaigns, for understanding who do we target with what and so on. So we knew about segments, full demographics. We knew some kind of top findings per segments and how these segments are different from each other in their behavior, what they do, what they don't, and so on. The size of each segment. Maybe your first segment of best customers is only 1,000 people out of 3 million membership. But in terms of revenue, they would bring you maybe 30% of the revenue. And then you already have a really, really good feeling of how valuable it is and what to do with them. We would know their average spend, or let's say top categories, if you have very different categories that you are offering, both product and service. We would also know the conversion rate per segment. And that would become a very feasible and, let's say, fundamental KPI that we would measure, because we would know that the change in conversion rate for one of the segments would mean much more than the change in conversion rate in 5 other segments, right? You move the needle 1% and you can see an uplift very high. Then we would know the browsing devices and specifically average length of stay per segment. And that is important because then you see already, these people are, for example, mummies. They don't have time. They are really short on time. They're browsing for, 3 minutes and then they buy right away. Or you have people like collectors, for example, who are very much selective they know exactly what they are looking for and why are they looking for, they would spend hours on the platform or in the shop, but it's not necessarily that it will convert on that day. So that helps you also a lot of understanding of how to design different strategies, communication strategies for different segments. And the last one is also very, very important, is language preferences, because as we know, and maybe you have seen it in your practice and in your experience as well, that German-speaking customers and French-speaking customers, they behave differently. This is what we could see even in registration times or the first purchase after registration days. So you can really see differences. And then the opt-in status per segment, that means you take the size of your segment. Let's say your best segment is 1,000 people, right? So these are your best of the best, cream of the cream. You really want to keep them for as long as possible and make them happy. And you know that there are 1,000 people in the segment. And then you check the subscription rate, and your subscription rate, let's say, is only 40%. That may be quite alarming, because it means that you don't have a possibility to actually make them happy because you cannot contact them. And so that would also give you a really good feeling as to what kind of people are your marketing or sales communications are targeted to. Are they targeted to lower segments with lower frequency and lower spend and so on, and you are putting a lot of efforts into that? Or it's really those customers that you most care about. And of course, then you can devise different strategies as to how to resubscribe people. Maybe it's a post letter. Actually, you know, the old-fashioned letter which says, we know you're one of our best clients and customers. We would like to keep in touch with you. Would you like this special offer and maybe visit this website and reconnect with us? We would be very happy to have you back. Mm-hmm. All right, so that is about the RFMS segmentation. And here we talk about the business-to-business sales process. Of course, you know that the B2C and B2B businesses, they are quite different. They're quite different in nature because, let's say, B2B process is not as straightforward as the B2C. B2C is typical, here is the product or here's the service. If you like it or if you need it, you just buy it. In B2C sales process, it features a longer sales cycle. Of course, there can be businesses that combine both. It's just for simplicity, we talk about B2B here. So then, of course, your customer goes through different stages, and the salespeople in the B2B company, they're going through a lot of stages as well, right? They start prospecting and securing lead, and then pitching and qualifying and nurturing in between. And they also need to kind of have also the hand on pulse in order to understand when is the right moment. When is the right moment to pitch? When is the right moment to nurture? When is the right moment to already push for the sale? And of course, in this longer process, it's also helpful to take a look at it not only from the perspective of internal sales, but also from the perspective of the customer and where the customer is on the journey. So on the next slide, you can see the comparison, because I'm sure you have all heard about the sales pipeline and sales funnel before, but many people are saying, what's the difference? I mean, isn't it not the same? Is it not, you know, the funnel? Yes, it is the funnel or the pipeline, but the difference is that sales pipeline, it is organized around the sales process. It's internal. If I'm a salesperson, I am looking at where's the lead, where's the prospect, what do I do, how do I secure the lead, when I pitch, when I negotiate, how do I close the lead. The sales funnel, on the other hand, is organized around the customer journey. So we think about where the customer is. What is the phase? What is the stage? What are their needs? Is it only awareness stage or it's already interest? What kind of technology helps us to define the difference between awareness and interest and intent? So here we talk about the lead scoring and lead grading, and also what can we do from our marketing and sales perspective in order to gently push our sales lead, potential lead, from one stage into another. So let's say if we know that this is a fresh prospect that came in the beginning and it's in awareness stage, all right, how do we, from the awareness stage, what do we do? What kind of strategies do we design in order to move him or her into the interest? Do we start with sales pitch right away, or we start gently with a little bit more information, maybe some webinars or white papers or some kind of useful information that for these people or this company would be relevant? So different frameworks, as you can see, a CRM person needs to be aware of what kind of business model is that. Is it B2C? Is it B2B? What kind of frameworks would I like to suggest? And which kind of frameworks would be relevant for this company? And the next slide is actually talking about the post-digital era. This one is interesting, I find, at least. The post-digital era, this term was coined by Accenture. And what does it mean? It means that they assume that currently a lot of companies are playing catch-up. Catch-up in, of course, technological sense. It is, you know, all those issues all the companies are struggling right now with is to how to make sure that the data is in the right system. What is the right system? How is it working? What does it allow us to do? Marketing automation. How can we simplify different things? Digital experience, UX, you name it. Oh, a lot of different things to take care of. And if we think about the future, which we, of course, would like to think about, then at one point, Accenture assumes that this curve of catching up will flatten out. Flatten out. You just can Google post-digital era Accenture and it will jump out right away. Thank you for your questions, and I just saw it. Yes, and basically it will flatten out, and at one point, all the companies or many companies will basically catch up. What does it mean? It means that many companies will adjust to the expectations of the customers. And we as customers will already get used to good things really quickly, right? We expect a booking confirmation or order confirmation. We expect to be able to buy and shop online. We expect that if something is failing, then we're getting notified. We expect a lot of things right now. And so the companies are trying to catch up. And at one point, somewhere in the future, the companies will understand that this is a standard. It's not a competitive advantage anymore. This is a standard. We need to have this and this and that in place. And so they basically put it in place. And then what happens next? And of course, all the things which are digital, they're not going away. They are here to stay. The internet, the social, the mobile, the cloud, the big data analytics, of course, and so on. And at one point, they assume that we will not be questioning the how do we do it technologically anymore, but we are asking other type of questions or nature of questions. One is how do we do it ethically, right? Because the more data we collect, the more questions around this area arise. What is ethical? What is not? What can we use? What can we not use? Where are the gray areas, and so on? And the second question is, of course, how do we become human-focused? So you can see the H2H, it stands for human to human, which means that we are not so much focusing on, here we have the technology and how do we optimize our internal processes to drive business, but we start with the human in mind. Right away, what do people need and how do we design the whole experience around them, where technology is just an enabler, right? And of course, when we talk about technology in the future, we cannot not think about artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, that would be on the next slide. We would think about it as not something that is coming somewhere in a really distant future somewhere. It's already here. It is already here. The artificial intelligence and machine learning, it is already employed in different systems in banks, for example, cybersecurity, so the fraud prevention, or very similar in different technology companies. So, for example, you could have noticed that if you are traveling and you have logged in with your account, maybe it's Google, maybe it's Spotify, maybe it's any other service that you use, and they have the fraud prevention system in place, you will get an email right away, the notification which says, look, we have noticed a login from a new destination or new location, which was not maybe experienced before. Is it you? If it's not you, then please let us know. So this is also how the fraud prevention works. The algorithms are constantly checking for the anomalies. If something doesn't go right or doesn't go as normal, then of course they notify that something is coming. Predictive trends, prediction in the email ESPs, the GPS navigators, and so on and so forth. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's already here. So for us as marketeers and CRM people and data people and overall business people, I believe this is really our responsibility to start educating ourselves around what is this, how do we work with it, how do we employ it, and what does it mean for our work. And there are two parts that it, every coin has two sides, right? So this coin also has two sides. On one side, we really need to be aware of the concerns around the artificial intelligence and data. So here, for example, you can see the 4 major concerns. One is privacy. So if our data is somewhere out there, what is the probability that someone will be using it, and what is the right? Will I, as a customer, be asked about it or not? The second one is bias and discrimination. So if you have already been reading or working with the machine learning, you know that they perform really well on bigger data sets and on bigger findings, and they are not so good with the outliers. So some small group, like small data sets, they would probably be either ignored or maybe not so much highlighted. And of course, when we talk about gender, race, or age, or anything, that might look like a discrimination. The third concern is lack of transparency. So obviously those algorithms are very, very complicated. They're complex and it's hard to explain them. But if we look into the future and we think, so the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms will be used not only in business, but for example, in government processes, we really want some transparency there, right? So there is one of the concerns. And then the fourth one is the lack of governance and accountability. So there are still a lot of open questions around the AI and ML in terms of who governs the data, what are the rules and laws around them, who is accountable, because even the laws, are they homogeneous around the planet, or each and single country will be placing some their own regulations around it? Or, for example, accountability topic is really, really big. You could have heard, for example, the case about the Uber driverless car, which unfortunately created the accident, but there was the tester, the person who was supposed to supervise the drive. She was in the car. And now there is the huge trial going on in the USA, which tries to identify who is accountable. Are people who designed the system accountable, or the person who was supposed to supervise? So again, a lot of open questions. On the other hand, when we talk about the positive sides, of course, we see a lot of possibilities with the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Especially from the marketing perspective or CRM perspective, we talk about personalization. Very, very powerful personalization. Something that they call the segment of one. So if we talk, for example, Spotify playlists, we all have very, very different personalized playlists that Spotify is organizing on their own. And this is the way to go, because no one will be able to detect, or no one will be able to continue running the marketing based on the bulk, newsletters and so on. It really should be very, very detailed down to the individual level. And to my knowledge, the Growth Academy is preparing something around AI. No, Darko?
Yes, we are. We, as you all know, the Growth Academy does courses, whether it's online or physical courses, where we train people on new technology and new stuff in marketing and sales. We are preparing an AI course for marketeers, which goes and tackles the topic of AI in marketing and what will happen, and it goes a little bit of what you just said and explained, and we try to go a little bit deeper on the functionalities and the possibilities also for AI for marketeers in the future.
Fantastic. All right, and basically this is all I wanted to share with you today. Now we're coming very slowly and smoothly into the Q&A session.
Right, so if anybody has a question for Jeff, please write it in the Slack, not in Slack channel, but in the chat, please. What I want to know from your expertise, Jeff, until everybody makes up their questions, what they want to ask you. Where do you see the biggest challenges for like mid-market companies? Like when you talk about marketing technology and technology per se, everybody says, that's for the big companies, that's for the big budgets, that's for the big spending. So what's the challenge and also the chances for mid-market or small sized companies?
Mm-hmm. This is a very good question, because I think this is something that stops the small size and middle sized companies from even thinking about it. Although there are so many changes they can do, it's not necessarily, as I also was mentioning in the beginning, it's not necessarily about the technology budget or a huge, powerful platform. It's more about what can be done in 3 different areas: around data, about technology, and around communication. And there are a lot of improvements that can be done in terms of processes before one needs to invest a lot of money in technology. So I would like to encourage those middle and small size companies either to start reading about it or to reach out to experts and consultants to help. Because, for example, those companies who are not able to have a full-time person on a regular basis, then I think it's a perfect possibility to ask the consultant to come in to do the full audit and to define the CRM strategy.
And for smaller teams and marketing teams, what would be the skills needed to say, let's cover with 20% of our resources, 80% of the possibilities of marketing technology?
I think you might have heard the notion of the T-shaped marketeer, when the marketeer nowadays cannot just cannot know everything. We all cannot know everything, because digital has grown so much and it's so rich in different directions. There is everything. There is newsletter, there's SEO, there is social media. There are so many different directions that we just cannot keep up with everything. And therefore, this T-shape, it suggests already that a marketer should know one area really in depth, and then the other areas at least something. And so for the smaller teams, of course, they could divide. They could say, all right, so who would be our data expert, who would be our technology expert, and who would be our communication expert? Let's try to take a look at it from not perspective of being in silos separately, but really come together and say, where do we have bottlenecks? How can we identify some quick wins, and whose support do we need? And typical support comes from the up there, so to say. It's the either owner of the company or the CEO of the company who needs to see that these changes are really valuable.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I have one question for the audience. Now you saw a couple of frameworks and you saw a couple of interesting stuff regarding data, CRM, and customer centricity, especially the pirate funnel and the RFMS module, which I think is very interesting because I didn't know about it until recently, until you introduced that to us as well. Who from the audience has worked with a pirate funnel or with an RFMS model? If you just can like click in the chat. Okay, cool. Thinking about leveraging both. Nice. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Pirate for more concrete use cases. Nice. Interesting process that you are on, Isabella. Okay, one question from Damir. Do you have any experience or insights about how to use the CRM data from online platforms such as social or website and connect them to the classic offline retail stores?
Mm-hmm.
Be a question from somebody who works in like the mobile industry, perhaps?
Okay, we had this question, of course, when I used to work for Estée Lauder, because we had both the online presence and, of course, a lot of stores. And there was always the question as to how to connect them, how to make sure that we can measure, how to make sure also that we can measure the what drives people and so on. And I think it was both the big ones, the Google and the Facebook, which were working on the geo-targeting, and they were claiming that they are able to connect the dots and connect the data. We need to check again, because I think in Switzerland, it had to be launched this year, if I'm not mistaken. So we did not introduce it back then. We were waiting until it will be live. It was already live in France, so we're waiting on the Switzerland. So I think it's worth Googling and checking where do they stand.
Okay, I hope this helps, Damir. Otherwise, we can discuss that later, like at 5:10 or so when we meet. Isabella has one question. Is there one approach, segmentation, that is recommended for lead generation on B2B by combining external data with internal data? For example, it could help to identify the clients that are booking with our competition versus us.
External, internal data. For the B2B, I definitely recommend the lead scoring, just to understand where they are. And of course, for the lead scoring, one is able to define the parameters, the filters on where the scores are added and where the scores are taken away. I'm not sure that we know or would be able to know or identify the clients that are booking with competition. I don't know what kind of data you use. I haven't come across something like that, but it's either lead scoring based on the signals, what this person or this person representing the company is doing on the website and otherwise engaging, or doing the small surveys. And those small surveys can be either ad hoc via email, or they can be via chat box, or they're also such a thing which is called, I think it's called extensive profiling, if I'm not mistaken. It's basically when a person is registering on the website, then in the background, there is possibility to integrate the form, which in the beginning asks just the key questions, let's say name, surname, the company, how big is the company, and so on. And then the next time this person comes and kind of logs in, then this form would already consist of different questions. And this is already a very good possibility how to collect more information from the customer and add to their profile in the database. And then, of course, it depends on creativity of those people who are formulating the questions as to how to ask the question indirectly in order to understand where this person or company stands. Are they already in the final stage of booking, or maybe they have any other alternatives? So that would be possibly the way I would approach it.
Yeah. And there's also the possibility regarding, depending on which industry you are in, there are a ton of market research companies that specialize on that and figure out where, for example, which customer books with your competition. You can extract that data in Excel form, for example, and insert that into your CRM, so you know. But you'd have to go through an external provider of such a service, depending on the business that you are in. All right. If there are no questions, yeah, you're welcome, Isabella. If there are no questions, we have, well, we thank you for your patience and for your interest in our webinar. My biggest thank goes to Jeff for taking the time to show us a little bit about data, CRM, and customer centricity. We have one last goodie for you for today. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Jeff is doing an online course, a 4-week online course in data, CRM, and customer centricity, where you can come with your actual use case from the company, and you work 4 weeks together with Jeff and all those topics that we now scratch the surface on. We have a discount code for the next one. The next one starts at the 2nd of September, goes until the 30th of September. It's a 4-week course, 2 hours per week, usually Wednesdays for 2 hours. And then you get a ton of homework. So it's really practical. It's a great experience. We have done it in May and June, and the feedback was great on that. Visit growthacademy.ch, growth-academy.ch. You'll find the customer centricity course there with the wonderful Jeff. And you get the recording at the end. Like, I think the automation is set for like 2 days after today. You'll get the recording of this webinar as well. If you have any questions to me or to Jeff, please write an email to Jeff at growthacademy.ch, and she can help you with anything that you want to know about data, CRM, and customer centricity. I thank you very much. Jeff, also big thank to you. I'll pay dinner for next time when we meet for this. And I wish everybody a happy week. Some more sunshine, because today was a little bit rainy, but thank God it rained. And until the next time, the next webinar is already in planning. I have a short survey at the end for you, so you can decide which topic that you want to hear from us. We'll have a good expert on any topic as usual. And other than that, I just can say goodbye, everybody, and take care and stay safe.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.